590 CJCW, your community, your station. That was Maroon 5 with Maps. It's 7:13, 4 degrees in Sussex, and I have a very special guest here in the studio. Independent candidate here in the Fundy Royal riding, David Amos, is with me. How are you doing this morning, David?
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Good day to the folks in Sussex as well.
So, how's the campaign trail been for you for the last couple of weeks? What have you been up to?
Well, the only thing I concentrated on was debating the politicians and then reviewing what was said about me in the paper. I don't knock on doors and I don't hustle money and don't bother people in dinner time. I just wish they would pay attention to the media and decide things for themselves.
As an independent candidate here in the riding, what do you think you can offer Fundy Royal that the other parties can't bring?
A very unique offering. It's obviously, hopefully, going to be a new minority government. If the polls are correct, there's going to be Liberals in power. Folks, particularly the Conservatives and the young folks that never voted, should consider an independent that can hold the Liberals to task without having to be whipped by party policies by the outgoing Conservatives. I think it's time for the old Conservative school and the young folks to consider an independent that will go and truly speak on their behalf. It's very unique. Independent in Parliament, in a minority government, they will all court his vote.
Now, what was personally your biggest motivation to run for MP here in Fundy Royal?
I ran here 11 years ago. My motive has always been the same. Justice. At the time that I ran 11 years ago, I was in American courts, and these days I'm in Canadian courts. I'm suing the Crown. I'm due an answer today from the Queen, and I haven't got it. The Crown's in default. Looks like I win another lawsuit by default today. Today's the day. That's why I put on my name on the ballot since last time was 2006. Peter MacKay, the outgoing Attorney General, didn't even bother to answer a very important lawsuit. That's why I'm running for Parliament.
Could you discuss this lawsuit at all? Is that something for the airwaves?
Oh, no, everybody's entitled to know.
Okay.
Years ago, when I was running for Parliament here, Rob Moore was just a lawyer, and everybody in this riding, even all the MLAs within this riding are blue coats, I call them, but they're definitely not Conservatives. They're actually of the Reform and then the Alliance Party. The PC party that most of us old folks used to be fond of is no more. However, I have family members that are involved with the former PC party, etc. And when I had lawsuits down in the States, I said in the statement of claim that I understood the problem was politics, and then when the next writ was dropped in a federal election in Canada, I would come home and run. And I was maintaining my word. And a special agent of the FBI followed me home to Sussex in 2004. And when I returned to the States, I was falsely imprisoned underneath the charges of other, right after I received an answer from the Governor General. Now, these days, this lawsuit, here it is, you see the top document? Mm-hmm. I joined a very exclusive rank of Canadians that were found in contempt of the House. Stephen Harper was found in contempt of the House in 2011. Louis Riel was found in contempt of the House over 100 years ago, and they hung him. And I've been found in contempt of the House. Now, I was found in contempt of the House while trying to get a seat within the building. We have a charter in this country. Before they deny my Section 2 charter rights to visit the most important public houses of them all, let alone try to get a seat in them, I should do something wrong, be found guilty of it, and then perhaps they could take my rights away. For the Conservatives that I know in Fundy, they should see this barring document by the Queen. In 1982, the Liberals made New Brunswick Canada's only bilingual province. Even our license plates are bilingual, yet this barring document is one language only. My first lawsuit is what Louis Riel should have sued for 100 years ago, being illegally barred from parliamentary properties. That's why Peter MacKay can't answer this suit. It's signed by a sergeant at arms. It's in one language only, and I'm guilty of nothing. That's what the lawsuit's about. This document is before the court, and it's supposed to be answered today. I've been showing it as I debated a cabinet minister. Nobody wants to even discuss this suit. That's why I'm running for Parliament. But all my rights are the same as everybody else's. What they did to me, they can do to you. In fact, they've done it to others. In Fredericton alone, I hear there's been 6 other people that have been barred from parliamentary properties. One is a blogger by the name of Charles LeBlanc, and I'm the guy who gave him his first computer. Every time they arrest him on the properties, the Crown never presses the charges because I pick up the phone and remind the Crown I'm paying attention. But nobody's ever sued the Crown for doing such malicious things. They say politicians have parliamentary privilege. Well, it doesn't extend to denying citizens their rights for political reasons. They must be held accountable. Now, as a politician, running as an independent, during a time of election, all electorates can hold them accountable by way of their vote. But once they get to Parliament, everything they say inside the building, they cannot be held accountable for. Everything they do within inside the building cannot be held accountable for. But what they don't tell you is who really runs the show. It's the Privy Council office. And it was in the news last night, and the farmers in New Brunswick need to pay attention to this, is the new TPP deal. And the farmers, the dairy farmers, are concerned about what might happen to their dairy industry, as well they should. But both the NDP and the Liberals refused to have an interview with the PCO office, the Privy Council office, but Elizabeth May went. Now, the Privy Council office is what runs this country. And who wins every election is the government. The same bureaucrats run the same government, whether they're liberal or conservative. And people like Dominic LeBlanc or Mulcair are members of the Privy Council office. I don't know how Elizabeth May got to be a member of the Privy Council office. But anyway, that's done in private, and that's who runs the government. What you see in elections or seen done in Parliament is just a smoke and mirror show. But what I say in public, like on this radio station, it's very important, and who should agree with me is the owner of this radio station. He used to be an advisor to Pierre Elliott Trudeau. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
Yeah, he understands everything I'm talking about. More importantly, the radio I'm speaking on right now is a very historic radio that people in this riding should be very proud of. There's 2 men that came from this riding. One is the lawyer Humphreys. They have a memorial for him down in Hampton. He wrote the civil rights for the UN. And more importantly, R.B. Bennett, the man from Elma within this riding, he was Canada's only prime minister to come from New Brunswick. He created the Bank of Canada. He created the Wheat Board. He created CBC. And this radio network was the first radio station of the CBC network. A lot of people don't know that. But Fundy Royal has a lot of serious history that the old school PC party should be proud of. And I'm courting the vote of the old folks that remember men like Humphreys and R.B. Bennett. My father's buried in this riding. My mom's 92. She still lives in this riding. All my ancestors, a lot of them, are all buried around here. They're of their Keith clan. They're loyalists. Instead of holding their nose and voting for NDP or Liberal to get rid of this Reform Alliance character named Harper, they should consider voting for a local who thinks just like them and is willing to test Liberals, NDP, and Reform Party people turned into conservatives. They really need an independent that understands history, the law, and his neighbors. I know I'm long-winded, and you probably should talk to me for hours, but that's a little local history.
Yeah, well, it's much appreciated. Now, if you are to be elected, how will you be helping create jobs in Fundy Royal?
Well, I said during one of the debates, now Rob Moore's cabinet minister in charge of ACOA, and he doles out the money, but usually to larger businesses and enterprises to promote work opportunities. I suggest they dole out smaller amounts of money directly to the people. So you take young people, such as yourself. Say you wanted to start a radio station in Havelock. You need a little seed money. You have an interest in the radio, you just displayed it. You want to become your own boss and hire people. Well, ACOA should maybe help you start a radio station where there's some place there isn't. Same thing with the young person that goes to agriculture college and doesn't have the seed money to buy his own farm. If we helped all the young people start their own businesses, not only would they create their own jobs, but they'd create jobs for others. There'd be less chance for the government to lose an amount of money because it'd be smaller amounts of money doled out to many people rather than big money to some company like Atcon or something that goes, I won't say the word, but goes bankrupt overnight. But anyway, I think the best way to create money is the same way I started. And I started from scratch with no money. I came to Sussex in '74, and my wife worked at this radio station when it opened. And I went to work for a bike shop that I wound up buying from the man and running myself and employing people. I think the government should help people start their own businesses and hire their neighbors and friends, find a job they love. You talk to a farmer, and he bounces out of bed every morning because they love farming. The farmers love farming so much, the more they work, the more money they lose, because they live to farm. There's also bike mechanics that live to be a bike mechanic, and talk show hosts that live to be a talk show host. We should help people start their own businesses. That's my take on it.
Now to get back on the farmers in the area, of course, there are a lot of farmers in Fundy Royal. How will you be helping out the farmers and the agricultural sector in Fundy Royal if elected?
Well, obviously the thing on the table right now is this very secretive TPP bill that nobody wants to talk about. My first advice to the farmers is Rob Moore is the government, so he's not going to say anything. The Liberals, once they get in, it's like every other agreement, like NAFTA and everything, the Liberals will just follow suit. What you need is somebody who understands the document and will argue about it. Now, in the case of TPP and the farmers in this area, the dairy farmers should be much upset because, not just because of the 3% with the Americans, they got to worry about New Zealand. But I'm the guy that understands the documents and has the right to stand in Parliament, rarely, but I could stand in Parliament and ask a truly serious question about TPP that would probably nix the deal. That is the most important thing I could do for the farmers in this area is check the TPP deal and bitch about it, for want of a better word.
Now, all in all, as we're kind of winding things up a little bit, why are you the best choice for Fundy Royal?
Because I have no party leader to be whipped to follow orders to. There is no democracy within the parties when they all have to follow the leader. I'm debating not Rob Moore, I'm debating Stephen Harper. I'm not debating the Lockard lady, I'm debating young Trudeau, who's being run by his own puppet masters. I am not debating Miss McKenzie. I'm debating Tom Mulcair, who used to be a Liberal cabinet minister, and another lawyer. I'm arguing lawyers, and then you take the Green Party. Well, I'm arguing Elizabeth May, who's a lawyer that used to work for Brian Mulroney. These people change colors of coats all the time, so never mind the coat, never mind the party. Vote for a local that's independent, a party of one, basically, that can think without having other people tell them how to vote or how to speak. And then the electorate of this county, or this riding, should understand they have a local that understands his neighbors or his former neighbors and can understand the laws that they're trying to make that go against your rights and interests. Because once it's law, you can't do nothing about it. And the party system creates these laws for their benefit, not yours.
Thanks very much for speaking with me here, Mr. Amos. Is there anything else you'd like to add to the people of Fundy Royal before Election Day?
Well, I noticed that my live debate on Rogers TV was the most watched. So if anybody's doing anything today, and the old folks like me that don't know how to work computers, there's kids running around with smartphones, just Google David Amos Fundy Royal. It appears that I put this riding on the map. There's people now making tweets and out of New York, Washington, Toronto, We are the most watched riding in Canada, and yet CBC won't allow me on the air. The Irvings attacked me in the paper. CTV has forgotten that I exist. And I thank this radio station, which is local, so that my former neighbors, I left here in '87, can actually hear my words unedited by a Irving news rag. I really am grateful for this radio station. And I thank R.B. Bennett for the creation of this radio network.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Amos. That was David Amos, independent candidate here in Fundy Royal. On Election Day, you can vote for MP over at St. John's United Church Center. Coming up next on CJCW, The Weekend, Can't Feel My Face.